if you want to make money, you should probably invest in women's sports.
We all need to take note of that.
We have a very special guest with us, Ali Riley.
Thank you.
A former Angel City FC team captain.
Women's soccer could not be sustained in the United States. When I got drafted out of college, the league that I played in, it folded. Then I went to a new team, the whole league folded. I mean, that says it all.
If you love something and it's your life, it's really hard to make it into a living.
The salaries, it was $6,000 a season. You know, in 2021, there was a huge reckoning. We're looking at sexual abuse in the league, harassment, discrimination. Players came forward with allegations and outlined the abuse that they had faced along with other players. It was a really, really dark day.
That's too emotional for me.
We are the talent. We are the product. You can't have a league if your players aren't willing to play.
Welcome to Broadlines,
a weekly video podcast by the Female Quotient,
where real headlines meet real conversation.
I'm Rae Williams, entertainment, lifestyle, and culture journalist.
And I'm Natalie Lizarraga, journalist and former news anchor.
And today we're going to be talking about the growing investment in women's sports, specifically soccer. We're going to be joined a little later by Ali Riley. You know, when I first started reporting, I actually never saw very much about women's sports, but they've come so far. So I'm really excited to dig into that.
Before, maybe you didn't see headlines about women's sports, and now they're everywhere.
I grew up in an Olympic household, I like to call it. So my mother is a 4-time Olympian. So I grew up seeing women in sport. Like, that wasn't like a question. Like, I saw women on the track. I saw my mom training. You know, all of her friends were athletes. That was my norm. So it didn't kind of occur to me that there wasn't as much attention on sports and women in sports, and then specifically women's team sports, until I actually got to America. And I was like, oh.
America will do that to you.
I was like, oh, wait. It was just a very interesting shift. I feel like when I got here, what I saw is that team sports for women haven't always been treated very seriously?
Yeah, I think it's interesting that you say that in Jamaica with your mom, obviously being an Olympian, you got to America and were like, wait, you don't champion women's sports? I'm so confused. That's a very unique point of view for people to have.
Yeah, and you know, Jamaica, with our athletes, with our track teams and all of that, we're very into that. And then we don't actually have American football. We have what you guys call soccer. We have football, and that's always been a thing. We've had our reggae boys. We got a national holiday when they made it to the World Cup. And then we have our women's football team that shortly followed that, you know, everybody rallied behind as well. I will say, though, I notice now that they still aren't getting the funding, but I think that's what I observed, you know, kind of growing up. And then when I was looking into it, I realized that one of the biggest drivers of progress here, especially in women's sports, is Michelle Kang. Because I was like, well, who's paying for it?
Well, yeah, who's writing the checks now? Yeah, I mean, Michelle Kang is at the forefront of these investments. She's giving women's sports what they need to continue. I know she's said that they're used to a male model. Like, the model of recovery, the model of training was always under men. So now we're getting money, big money, $25 million commitment to U.S. soccer, driving all of these things. She owns 3 clubs. So if you're looking for inspiration when it comes to investment, when it comes to women's sports, Michelle Kang is it.
And so that latest $25 million commitment is to the Kang's Women's Institute with a soccer forward foundation, and just building research, standards, and support systems for women athletes that they've always deserved. And I'm interested, when we introduce our guest a little bit later, to kind of hear how that will be helpful and how that's needed within the sport. But we have few leaders investing at that scale.
Yeah, I mean, that is very true. It's a lot of money needed to kind of change how things have been going before. So when we look at just Deloitte last year, this is what kind of got the conversation going for me, was this article. The article is titled "Women's Elite Sports Exceed Expectations as Revenues Projected Surpass US $2.3 billion in 2025. If there's a B in front,
I know, right?
I know there is money to be made, there is money had, and there are checks that need to be written to maintain this. Like, it is safe to say when it comes to women's sports now, business is booming. We all need to take note of that. If you are at a company that is on the fence about investing in women's sports, literally, Rae and I will come to your office with these notes and give a full presentation on where the dollar bills need to go.
Global revenue for women's sports has actually grown over 300% since 2021. And I'm mad that people are just catching on now, but I'm happy that people are catching on now when there is, you know, kind of money to put into sports like this.
This is basically a pitch for where to send your money. Okay? So the first thing is commercial value. Women's soccer remains one of the largest revenue generators in women's sports globally.
And then, of course, media deals. I think one of my favorite things, and I'll mention this some more later, is the kind of rise of women's sports media as well. Just people covering, just like women talking about women's sports to other women. And so those media deals, there are major TV deals with CBS, ESPN, and then other streaming partners that have helped to increase the visibility and reach just significantly more people. And I love that. Like, I love to view my sports. There's an account I love, Hoops for Hotties. And it's like an equal mix for me of like the sport and all of the details, but also all of the drama and then how the drama ties into the sport too, because that's also a thing in basketball. But just even accounts like that, because I think there's so many people, women and men, that are interested in sports in different types of ways. And so I love that there's now avenues for everybody to get into their favorite sport. So media is the second one.
Yeah, and fan engagement that we're seeing year over year. We have stats from 2024 that the National Women's Soccer League hit over 2 million total attendance and had more games with 10,000 plus fans than the previous year. That's according to Yahoo Sports. Growth is huge. The numbers continue to climb year over year, which if you're an investor,
Makes sense.
what are we doing here? If I need something to invest my money into that's going to continuously grow my accounts and marketing, ads, etc., that's a smart move.
One of the things that I wondered is what this kind of looks like from the other side, because we've talked about, you know, the kind of optics from the outside, the growth, the investments,
the fans,
but what does it look like from the actual field or from the pitch? So we have a special guest for that, Allie Riley. Welcome.
Hi, thank you.
So I'm going to kind of give a very brief bio because, of course, you have so many accolades to your name. But here's just a few. She is a former Angel City FC team captain. She's played for a bunch of teams, including international ones. She's competed in 5 World Cups. That's 5 more than me and 5 more than Natalie.
Speak for yourself. No, fair.
And then 4 Olympic Games, which is crazy. And then she is hosting a new podcast called Time Wasting with Kelly O'Hara. And then, of course, she is a current CBS sports analyst. So many things. So please welcome Allie Riley.
Thank you. Well, I've just been sitting here like, these women speak my language. You are the ones I want to go to drinks with. You get it. You have all the stats, all the numbers, all the things I'm trying to say all the time. So you get it. So I can't wait to yap with you two.
Allie, I have to ask you a question because we were just going over this and you had something to say about it. Doing the research for this, you think you're getting all the notes, and you and Rae just had this conversation that I thought was so interesting. The internet's not always right when it comes to women's sports.
No, well, we know the internet is not always right, but especially uninformed when it comes to women's sports. And I think that's just such a reflection of society and culture, especially sports culture. And we have this huge gap when it comes to Google. When you say who has scored the most international goals, it comes up Cristiano Ronaldo, when actually it's Christine Sinclair. So there's just the status quo being men's sports, the norm being men. It is reflected in the internet. And I actually notice, obviously, when I'm doing research, I don't use AI, but I went a little on ChatGPT, just wanted to see a couple of notes when I was preparing for Women's Champions League. Wrong. Everything wrong. Which teams players play for, some of their bio information. And that's just word of warning to everybody out there. But also, the more we talk about women's sports, the more we who are informed talk about it, that will also educate these algorithms and just make sure that the internet is more accurate for something that is really, really important, something that we all hope that people will be talking about more and more.
Yeah, because I notice even just for us as journalists, like we're used to using several sources, thank God, not just one. And so when we were looking in, even as we were making notes with our producers, there were several things that we were just like, wait, we're seeing this and then we're seeing this. Whereas when you Google a men's sports topic, it's just so clear. And then there's articles about it. So that kind of angered me as a journalist and as someone who is used to, again, doing multiple sources as opposed to, you know, the average person who might just ask ChatGPT and take it with a grain of salt. But what I'm curious about is your first season was in 2021, correct?
With Angel City,
With Angel City in 2021. What would you say it's just been a few short years, but I feel like these are a few short transformational years.
Yes.
What would you
Very
say
much
is
so.
the difference in like just even attendance at games, facilities, all of that when you started as compared to when you freshly retired?
I think we can go back even further, actually, because when I got drafted out of college, this was 2010. And the league that I played in, which was the Women's Professional Soccer League before the NWSL, it lasted 3 short years and it folded. The team I got drafted to, it folded. Then I went to a new team, the whole league folded. And that says it all. Women's sports could not be sustained. Women's soccer could not be sustained in the United States, where the women's national team is the best team in the world, has the most resources, and there weren't enough, I won't say fans, but there wasn't enough investment to make it something that people even knew to watch every week, knew to attend every week. They couldn't buy merch. I was looking at my parents and, my dad, they kept everything. They lost a lot in the fires, but my dad, what he chose to evacuate with were a lot of my old Allie Riley jerseys and T-shirts.
Wow.
But the clubs I played for, they weren't able to buy a jersey.
Yeah.
So things have changed so much in the merch game and just all of how I don't think we were on TV. Even when the NWSL started, it was on YouTube, then it was on Lifetime. Now it's this, I want to say over $200 million media deal where there's different networks showing the games, and the games are played on baseball diamonds and in high school stadiums, and there was no conversation. We were the ones talking about it. And so again, full circle, now being someone who gets to speak about the game and be paid for it, women weren't doing that, men weren't doing that. And even with the NWSL, when I went to Europe, because the league folded, I didn't want to come back. I was watching the salaries. It was $6,000 a season, living with host families, the resources, just everything has changed. And then enter a club like Angel City that was founded by women. We had a woman coach. We had a woman GM, president. Now we talk about Willow Bay having a woman owner, and everything from before we even played our first game, there were 16,000 season tickets purchased. We have this state-of-the-art facility, and we're doing research on our menstrual cycles. We've participated in ACL studies. There's so much thought about the holistic experience of not just an athlete, but a woman athlete, a female athlete. One of my closest friends, Claire Emsley, she just had a baby, and the support she got during her pregnancy to train, to lift, individualized programs, so much intention. Now her return to play, we're going to see her this season back with Angel City. None of that. There were women who couldn't consider coming back after giving birth, after having a family. I was one of them. I didn't feel that I had the economic means or just the support and the resources to have a baby and come back. And that was a huge dream of mine that I wasn't able to realize. So everything has changed.
Yeah, and even just losing deals and stuff like that. I know, not particularly in soccer, and I'm sure it happened in soccer too, but in a lot of other sports, women would get pregnant and lose the little endorsements that they did have. I think it happened to Allison Felix. Like they dropped her, their sponsors would drop her. So to see that all of that is different now and in a relatively short amount of time, I think is just... I'm so happy.
You've seen it all. Like your stories start from the beginning where there were leagues that have now dissolved and that weren't, and you had to go to Europe. When you played overseas and in other places, what is the biggest difference you see of women's soccer being received there versus the United States?
This is such an interesting dynamic to talk about because when I went to Chelsea, that was the first time that I really experienced this kind of, the facility and just living in a country where they are nuts about football. Football is life. Football is life in most parts of the world.
Yeah.
Here, I would say women's football is life, which is something I like because when I was in Europe, I was at Chelsea, I was at Bayern Munich, two of the biggest clubs in the world. But no matter how high we went or how celebrated we were, you are always overshadowed by men's football because that is everything. So I still felt this kind of weird dissonance because I'm like, here we are, I'm making more money, the brand is really big, but I still walk past, the men and their vehicles that they would drive and their parking lot and their facility and go past all of that to the back of the facility where the women's facility was. A lot has changed since 2018 at Chelsea. So it is way more equal now. But that was just so surprising to me that I still felt like something isn't right still. And then coming to the US and especially Angel City, where we're not competing, we don't have a men's team as part of Angel City. San Diego Wave is separate. This is, and you have investors like Michelle King who are invested solely in women's soccer. So now Chelsea has separated. So you have Alexis Ohanian coming in and investing. Now you can invest in Chelsea women. But that's where in this country, I came back and I felt really empowered as a woman athlete, as a woman soccer player. Whereas in Europe, I felt more like the soccer, the football part. But as a woman, I still felt the disparity. I felt the disparity every single day. And here, men's soccer is growing. And I'm so excited about the Men's World Cup coming here. And I feel really lucky to be in this time where the U.S. women, they are ranked higher than the men. It was their, fight for equal pay. They make the U.S. men's team money because they qualify and win World Cups. And so being a woman athlete, being a woman soccer player in this country, I do think you're elevated and your brand, you're amplified and you're given this microphone and this platform that at the time that I was in Europe, the soccer I loved. But in terms of the brand and when I was injured and when I wasn't playing, that was really hard for me because you look outside the field. Where am I getting fulfillment? And I wasn't feeling that. Whereas here now, even as I was injured for the last 2 years, I'm retired and everything we've just spoken about, I'm still in it. I'm still valued. I'm still celebrated. I'm invested in as a former athlete. Yeah. So it is a very kind of interesting mix. And I wonder, as soccer grows even more in Europe, as we see teams like Chelsea and Arsenal really invest in their women's side, what will that look like for the NWSL and a club like Angel City? Because they will have that history and that tradition of men's football, plus now investment into women. Whereas we don't have the tradition, but we're really women forward, women's sports forward. And yeah, just culturally different here. So long-winded answer, but it just was kind of a complex feeling.
Did you find that when you were in college, before you got drafted, you got into that it was like a similar landscape? Because we know from a lot of studies, and we'll get into more of them, that, this investment has to start earlier than just, you pop up at Angel City. Yes, and it's got to start before that. So did you feel like when you were in college that was happening for you, that it was, kind of viewed as even semi-equal?
At Stanford, the women's soccer team, we were the bosses. Okay, so again, I won't say lucky. I mean, we worked hard for that.
Yeah.
But I did get this experience where women collegiate athletes at Stanford, and we're still seeing it today, were so celebrated. And our soccer team and our football team were struggling during that time. So women's soccer, women's basketball, women's volleyball, we were the shit. And I felt celebrated as a woman. I felt like my leadership skills and who I was as a player and as a person was really championed by my head coach, who's still the coach at Stanford. Also, shout out Paul Ratcliffe, because that's a long time to be a head coach at a university when things have changed so much. So I think I was really, really lucky in that. That was the perfect school for me to go to. And the way we were received was very impactful in terms of positive reinforcement for then me moving into the professional soccer world, especially when like the league folded. But I had this base of confidence in, no, it doesn't matter that I'm a woman, I'm an athlete, I know my value. And that was, again, why I went to Europe. I wasn't going to sit around and wait for this new league to come into the U.S. where they're paying $6,000 a year. No, absolutely not.
A year?
Yeah.
When you said it the first time, I was like, she can't mean a year.
Yeah.
She's like, she means a game.
Yeah. The season was shorter at the time. So players, but then again, what are you doing the rest of the year?
Yeah.
So they would go to Australia or they would coach. And again, you're living with host families and not really encouraging like, oh, I should have a family. Like,
right.
No, it's very, really, really tough.
One of the things that you mentioned or we've talked about is just the fact that obviously, especially earlier on, the men's team had, bigger things, bigger, nicer cars, like bigger facilities. But did you also feel like any kind of sexism? And I mean, I know it almost sounds like a trite question because we know that exists. But what was that like in your experience?
I will say I think women's soccer, it does look different than men's soccer, but it's not worse.
Mm-hmm.
It's different. We should be appreciated and respected as such because we're not playing against men. So what's the big deal? Like, we're playing against
women.
Women's sports, women athletes, we're competing against each other. So does it matter that men have a faster sprint time than us? No. Women's soccer is equally as exciting, equally as amazing. If not more, because we as women, we have second jobs. We're giving birth to children. We're raising families. Like, we are hustling so hard and still able to do the exact same work, if not more.
I never thought of it until you just said it, how I would sit there and defend that and be like, well, but and I'm like, why do I have to?
No,
it's women's sports. Bye. Like, if you don't like it, it's not for you.
When you think of fans, if there's a clip of a footy fail, someone makes a really bad mistake or an own goal, if it's women, how they come for us.
Yeah.
And I'm like, every weekend you could pick something like this out at a men's soccer game at any level. And it's funny. It's just funny because we've accepted that men's sports is established, that it's professional, that it's serious, that it's the real deal. So if someone makes a mistake, oh, it was just a little funny thing. If it's us, they should not be playing.
Yeah, I've definitely
They should
seen
not be paid. When I see the comments, when I see just people taking the piss out of women's sports simply because we are women, it kills me. Even with the NWSL, in 2021, there was a huge reckoning. We're looking at sexual abuse in the league, harassment, discrimination. I'm not saying that doesn't happen in men's sports, but some of the sexual abuse that we know women face in the workplace, we see it in sports. And that was it could have taken down the entire league. That is, the league folded when I was playing in the WPS because of a lawsuit against an owner/coach. So for those of us who had lived and kind of experienced that period, it was very triggering to have it happen again 10 years later. And our deepest fear was if we come forward with these allegations, if we take this public, if we take this to the league, that another women's sports league in the United States will fold. And I think some people wanted us to feel that.
Yeah.
That, do you know what you're risking here if you threaten to go on strike, if you say something, if women share their stories? And so for that, again, positive outcome of coming forward and of having our Players Association, having a union, all the collective voice was that the changes were made at the league level, and the league made huge changes in terms of putting systems in place and just really, really making it clear that the women coming forward, that was the right thing to do. And it was the coaches and the abusers who would be removed. It would not be the soccer taken away from us.
Right.
An investigative report came out. The Athletic also broke the news. Sally Yates did a really in-depth investigation, and players came forward with allegations, and Alex Morgan was a really, really important figure in this with her platform and her voice. And it was Mona Shim and Sinead Farrelly who came forward and outlined the abuse that they had faced along with other players. And to read that article from The Athletic, to see it in black and white, typed out what these women had experienced. Yeah, it was a really, really dark day. It was a reckoning that took a lot of courage, but there were other players who really outlined in depth what they had gone through. It is horrific that is what it took. But I'm proud that we as a league, as the players, came together to do whatever it would take to make sure to put protections in place to hope and fight that it wouldn't happen again.
Can you just speak on the power of everybody working, of women working together?
I would love to, because when we work together, we can't be silenced. And there is so much power, and we get it. And it goes across teams, it goes across leagues, across sports, across the globe. And that is what I really realized, what was so scary, I think, for those players who came forward in the WPS when the league folded. We weren't connected in the same way. We didn't have the Players Association, social media. You know, I can send a DM to anyone, but I mean anyone in the women's football world, and they, you know, might actually accept my DM request because we feel this connection to each other and we realize our voice together will be stronger. So that for me had a similar, we had an investigation. We had some really big challenges with the New Zealand national team. And I felt very, very isolated. I didn't want to, you know, rock the boat for my teammates who weren't affected. And it took, you know, 3 of my teammates saying, "Are you kidding? If you walk away from this team, I will walk away from this team. We're not leaving this team in a place where you feel silenced and things could happen again," you know? So it really, that snapped me out of this feeling which is how people want you to feel in positions of power, that you are alone and you are weak and no one will listen to you. And it really, when another woman looks at you and they say, "I see you and I hear you and we're going to use our voice together," and it's never then 2. Honestly, and then it's 4, and then it's 8, and then it's 800. And we're looking, you know, what's happening in the W using their collective power. And just the NWSL that year was really, really defining. And I hope that everyone involved that season felt that, because that is something we can so clearly tell the younger generations. It's okay if they weren't playing in 2021, but I can tell you what it felt like to stand at the center circle, and every team did it. So every player at the certain minute, we determined what minute of every single game that weekend, stood in the center circle together, you know, arm in arm, stopped the games. And that changed the league forever, changed women's soccer, women's sports. Because when that happened for us and we got the things that we wanted changed, then you're looking at, okay, if basketball, they need something, lacrosse, track. We're sharing. This is what worked for us. This is why it's so important to have a collective bargaining agreement, to have a players association. These are the concrete reasons why, and this is why it will work. And we are the talent. We are the product. And that is one time where, you know, I'm never going to say we're just a product, right? But in this case, when we're talking about business, you can't have a league if your players aren't willing to play. Right. And we are just so powerful together. And as women, we are so smart. Again, we've had to have an education. We've had to have second jobs. We have started charities and organizations and foundations and media networks because we are so damn smart and we work so hard, and we always have had to. And so now we're seeing a generation that we are fighting so hard that they get to be just athletes, but they still will need to have those skills, because someone is always going to come for us. Someone's always going to try to tear us down. So even if players are now making millions of dollars with their commercial deals and with their salaries, and I'm hoping we're going to see that in the W especially, someone will still try to come and take that away from you, or you deserve even more. And that's when the collective voice will become very important again.
That center circle story almost made me cry, girl. That's too emotional for me.
Do you think that now, especially with the progress that's been made, that women's ownership is a big part of making sure that some of this never happens again?
I hope so. And obviously, women also abuse other women. So not all of these were just about men abusing women. But I do think that women understand, and this is what I've felt firsthand with Angel City, that we are not just soccer players. We are not just athletes. We are people. And that is everything from our daily experience, having systems in place to report abuse, But the commissioner of the league was a woman at the time. So it really is about the right people. Going beyond the really terrible things that can happen, there's also, like I was saying, support if someone wants to have a baby, what we want to do after sport to make sure that there are resources in place. If you want to build your brand, just having that kind of purpose and support, that means a lot. And that helped me play my best football, really. I know people look at Angel City and in the beginning it was like, oh, it's just Hollywood and, it's all about the celebrities coming to the games. But no, that club changed my life as a person and as a player. And before I got injured, I really felt like I was playing some of my best football because I had a purpose. When we scored goals, 1,000 meals were being donated to people in the Los Angeles area who were in need. The club's values were my shared values, and standing for inclusivity and celebrating the LGBTQ plus community. These are all things that made me feel like I could be my authentic self because I am an ally and I'm an advocate and I believe in equal rights. That is who I played for, and that was who I could be when I was kicking a soccer ball. So I think that's where this understanding, if you treat people, athletes, as human beings, they will perform their best.
Yeah.
So even if your only goal is to win games, you should still treat people with respect, how they want to be treated, not how you want to be treated, how they want to be treated, and see them as a person when we have to retire, because every professional athlete, this is not a job you can do. It doesn't matter how good you are. It's not one you can do until you're 65. That's who we're spending the rest of our life with. And that's who I really had to think about when I was coming to terms with my injury and my retirement. And I was so lucky to be at a club like Angel City where they supported me in that decision, helped prepare me for the transition because they saw me as a person and as a woman. And so that I do think that other women do understand that better.
Mm-hmm.
That was going pretty deep. I think just on a more day-to-day level, language. It is not sports and women's sports. It is not the World Cup and the Women's World Cup. It is the Men's World Cup and the Women's World Cup. So that's something for me just daily. And my family and my husband, I'm like, this is the language we use because we're talking about, Google and ChatGPT and just society and culture. It has to be very clear that men's sports, that men are not the status quo.
Yeah. Right. And I think we're so trained that way because I'm like, even thinking like we've probably said that in the stats. That's because of how media and society portrays them differently. And it's interesting because in other sports, it's becoming a little more equal. Like you don't really say like men's track and field and women's track and field. You kind of just say track and field. So I'm hoping that in the coming years, we can get used to that, even as media professionals and, just, casual viewers, that we're going to, say the Men's World Cup and the Women's World Cup, not the World Cup. And
I mean, it's built into, we have the NBA and then the WNBA. Like it's the MNBA, okay? No, but I think just if someone says Arsenal's playing, men or women, I'm going to ask you and the men are playing, if that's what you mean, like why should we just assume that you're talking about the men?
I wondered earlier too, what it meant for you also to be a minority in this sport, because we know what the numbers are. I don't have them exactly written down, but we know there's lots of research about, minority women in sports and kind of how women are worse off and then minority women are worse off.
Yes.
So what has that meant to you to even, one, be able to be an advocate for inclusivity through Angel City, but also yourself to, have people look at you and be like, shit.
Oh, this also makes me really emotional because when I was growing up, I felt so different being Asian and not having teammates or other students or friends look like me. And growing up in Pacific Palisades, very white neighborhood, and my mom was so different than the other moms at school. I didn't understand at the time it was because we were Asian. You don't like clock it at that age. I felt that what soccer did for me, it made me feel like I could be myself and that I was strong and it was cool to be a strong girl. And I didn't think about that I looked different as much, and in school, it wasn't cool to be smart. In school, it wasn't cool to be a girl who wanted to play sports with the boys. And that was lonely. And then on the soccer field with my other gals, and I'm an only child, so they were all like my sisters. I just felt like I could be myself. My dad was my first coach, so obviously he like really, really pumped me up. He still hypes me up way too much. There was one other Chinese player when I was a senior. She was a freshman. So it kind of felt like, okay, there was like one on a team at a time. There was one Black player on the team at a time. And I look around now, oh my gosh, in the college game. And when I just go to anything for football for her, or you just go to AYSO, whatever, watch club team here in Los Angeles, it is so diverse. At Angel City, the first game, I mean, I was beside myself for so many reasons when we had that inaugural game in 2022. But people came up to me, fans, Asian fans said, this has changed my life and it's too late for me to play now. But you've just opened my eyes, and seeing you live out my dream, you know, has given so much to me, and for parents too, when they have a daughter who's Asian, and how much it meant for her to see me and June Endo playing on this team in front of 22,000 people every week. I think it's obviously there are different reasons why different minorities like aren't represented in sports. For Asians, it's really cultural, right? It's less economical. It's cultural. And we're just our parents from a generation where it did not feel like a sustainable profession. My mom was really scared when I wanted to go into sports because she didn't think I would be able to be financially stable. And just seeing how this culture, like the shift in culture, is really, really meaningful to me, and it's really special. And I know, especially since soccer isn't a sport where you have to be particularly tall, I'm like, this can be for us, you guys. And going beyond being of Asian background, just the diversity as a whole, and look at the U.S. women's national team. You know, this is a team that the front line triple espresso, like you can, you know, it's people joke about it, but that is serious
incredible
representation.
Yeah,
there's so many things that have changed. The sport has grown so much, but that's something that again, I didn't really dare to kind of dream about, but it is finally, we're seeing teams that are actually representative of the cities and the countries that we live in.
There was also like this connotation of athletes having to, especially even as women, look a certain way, have a certain style. Like maybe it was just like, you know, they thought of women as, you know, either you had to be butch or you had to be like whatever it was, the stereotype
to try to counter the butch stereotype. Like.
Right. And now there's kind of everybody, and they're serving style and hairstyles and sport and everything.
Yeah.
So I'd love to see that. I'm curious, on the same vein, like what do your DMs look like in terms of, are you getting lots of, you know, people just on a daily like being like, you're so cool?
I do. And this is, again, we're talking about social media where it can be really great and like a little bit weird and dark.
Talk about the good ones.
But I really try to read as many messages as possible because I can connect with people that, you know, they maybe came to a game, but they weren't able to get an autograph, or they, especially around my retirement, oh my gosh, just messages about how I've impacted somebody's life. Like it is.
That's very real. I mean, your story about people coming up to you to tell you that they've impacted your life. Not that it was also going to make me cry. That's why I couldn't speak during it. You're on the verge. I'm going to do it soon if you have another story. I think of my own daughter, and it's so hard to get out, but it's people like you that it seems simple, but her seeing it is something I didn't get to see. It's important to parents.
Yeah.
And like small things like that, huge difference. And it also takes off like the workload for us because we just say, look at her. Like, I'm not going to run down the field, but you know who does it really well. Like, so it's nice to have that. A total switching side note here so that I can stop crying. Can we talk about this Angel City fashion? You guys come out of this tunnel.
Oh my gosh.
Is
it's
it
one
like,
of my favorite things on this. Like, I'm not even kidding.
on.
It's one of my favorite things on this earth. That's why I mentioned like the hairstyles,
I'm
the fashion. Even when you walked in today,
Well,
in my head, I was like,
hey, if a woman of color is making sports merch, you know I'm buying it. So
fair.
shout out Doma Wells. Obviously, she made the merchandise for Washington Spirit, and then the NWSL was like, now you got to make merch for every single team. So I'm so glad now to have her Angel City little kit here. But it is really, really powerful, I think, to see women be able to express themselves.
Oh, it's great.
You have it on the pitch, and I love how, like, if a woman has her hair a certain way or wants to wear makeup or lipstick it's not for the male gaze, it's for herself.
Yeah.
It is what makes her feel good. If you want to roll those shorts up, I know we always talk about like soccer icks. I'm like, girl, go for it. Like, you show those legs, whatever you want to do, you know? And then we get like the tunnel fits.
Tunnel walks are incredible.
And if you're not into it, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like, but if you are, I love that it's become part of our culture.
It sure has. And I don't know if it's an LA thing or if everybody's walking out, but you guys look
extra.
I'm just like, I mean, it is, you ate and there were no crumbs and you guys look amazing. I'm like, imagine taking that off to put on your soccer uniform after you're like, we look like we could go out right now.
Some of my especially when it goes to heels, I'm like, I could never. And then I realized some of my teammates would like put them on for the walk and then I'm like, you are taking care of your feet. So
Fair.
Good. And same with the W. I'm like, girls, you look amazing.
They look amazing.
But I'm so glad we're getting celebrated and noticed for it. And it is just another way for young girls to feel represented and just give them ideas and connect in. Like, I like how she has her hair and I love this. And you can be whatever and whoever you want and still perform on that field and be an amazing athlete and win medals and win World Cups. And you can be whoever you are. And that's the message, I think, especially for young girls. We just have to keep pushing that. And so also shout out the social teams for taking in the media, the photographers, taking the photos, helping us just look our best, feel our best, and putting those edits out on the internet.
I think too, like, as you said, like, you're multidimensional. You're not just out there to play the sport. Now that things are marketed and people are paying attention, which I don't know how you feel about the eyes now as you've worked so hard to get them. It seems like, is it too little too late? Is this just a flicker of magic right now? Or is this a long-term thing? I mean, we did see ESPN put a Sunday show out that is all women's sports. We've seen media truly invest, but it might feel, I mean, you could speak to this, but like a little bit of PTSD, like maybe you felt like you were at one point at some point and then it got taken away. And so it's like, it's hard not to maybe want to tread lightly of like, is this really happening? Are we like peaking right now? And is this really going on? Because I'm sure you've had moments before where you thought it and then it was ripped from you.
I think what helps me with that is because I think as millennials or the, 30 plus, 35 plus, we always have that voice in the back of our head. It's too good to be true.
Yeah.
But then I think of Trinity Rodman and Alyssa Thompson, Kennedy Fuller. I mean, they're getting younger and younger.
Yeah.
This is all they know. And it's all they're going to it's just going to get better and better. And they have that confidence. And that makes me feel confident because it's still not normal for me. I see a boy or a man in a women's sports jersey and I'm still surprised. And that's my own trauma. That's what I've gone through. And I feel like that's, what our generation, that is probably, we're always going to have that until maybe I see my daughter, hopefully one day, she doesn't exist yet, have such a different landscape that she steps out into the world into. But it's so funny you say that because for me, it is always there. And I don't know if that will change, but I do from the data and the numbers. I know we're only going like this.
Yeah.
And I know we love numbers. So the NWSL championship, it was the highest ever viewership. It was up 22% from 2024, which was 45% from 2023. Like, it's just going like this. And with social media, I feel like we don't, in non-traditional sports media, we don't have to rely on if suddenly, I won't say any names, if a major network were to suddenly pull the plug, we don't have to rely on them because Together and Just Women's Sports and Highlight Her and whoever and Female Quotient will be posting about it, will be talking about it. You look at the engagement and the numbers of some of these athletes, of a Marta, of a Alexis Putellas, and it's only going to keep growing. And women also have do the purchasing in the families. And women's sports fans are so locked in.
Oh, yeah.
They want to wear the merch. They will come to games over and over again. They will spend the money, and that's not changing. So that's where I have to keep doing these numbers over and over again.
Yeah.
And Angel City, we talked about how much it was over $100 million valuation after 2 years. When our founders purchased the rights to the franchise, it was under $10 million. 2 years later, over $100 million. And now Atlanta, they just purchased the rights to a franchise for the NWSL, $165 million.
It's an incredible jump.
So we just go back to the numbers, which again, if you're not investing,
what are you doing?
What are you doing?
Really
because it's not a charity. It's a smart business move.
Yeah, it is. And one of the things that I want to you said the women's, I have the stat for the numbers. Research from Parity found that women's soccer fans are 58% more likely to make purchases because of the brand sponsorship.
Oh, yeah.
Compared to fans of women's sports, more than 1 in 4 fans say they have bought something because of the sponsor, showing a strong brand impact. So if you want to sponsor and you want people to buy your stuff, women's sports is where it's at.
I'm literally not leaving a game without merch. I think there's a lot of women like me who want a piece of, what they're invested in. So if that is Angel City, we want a piece of it, to wear it, to, have a little piece of ownership, because we're that passionate about, what it is that we're watching or what it is that we're doing. And I think that is something to consider when, talking about this investment in sports, is that there are also women who will financially support the other parts of this team because they want that piece of it. I wanted to ask you about your podcast.
Oh my gosh, I
love
excited.
the name. So tell us more.
Okay, so time wasting is a tactic. We call it like one of the dark arts in soccer, in sports, where you're trying to run out the clock, usually when you're winning, right? And then, we listen to podcasts. I'm not saying it's a waste of time, but, when you're trying to maybe kill some time, when you're in the car. And so we loved that kind of play on words, a little tongue in cheek, and we will be balancing educated, very, fun, tactical, technical kind of commentary with some shithousery, because that's who we are as people. So I think just having that come together in the podcasting world, and there are amazing podcasts on women's soccer, amazing former athletes who have great podcasts. And I think there is space for all of us. But what Kelly and I, we went to Stanford together. We got drafted to play our first professional season together. We have so much history. She played for the US. I played for New Zealand. We both retired a season apart. And we just have so many stories we can tell about the game, but also analyze and cover this upcoming NWL season. So that's where kind of, we're not going to waste your time, but it is time wasting.
It's also you're low-key very funny.
Thank you.
Entertaining, which I will be tuning in.
And this kind of goes to what I was saying earlier, is that there are so many avenues for women and other people to kind of get in and enjoy women's sports in different ways. And I think having a podcast like that, where you're talking about the technical stuff and you're at shithousery is my new favorite word, thanks to you. So that is just, I think it's brilliant.
And we're getting paid. This isn't just us, what I did for many years back in the day, just this side hustle where you're like, oh, I'm going to put a video out there on YouTube and hope I get views. But what's really coming of it? Obviously, things have changed a lot in the social media space and sports media, women's sports media. But there are networks invested in us to create this content. And that is changing everything. And for me and Kelly, we retired at a time where we're seeing this boom and this growth in women's sports, specifically women's soccer. And you just think, I've really missed out on the chance, playing in World Cups, playing in Olympics. I didn't get paid anywhere near what the players are getting paid now. And I'm not saying that's like caused any bitterness or jealousy. I'm so proud because our generation, the generation before us, paved the way for us. And it felt like our whole career, our goal was to now create some environment where these women could have it so much better than we did. But you're kind of like, damn, I missed out.
Yeah.
But going into the media side, the investment, it is actually, we're getting to be rewarded and reap the benefits of that as well, because the investment is going beyond just salaries and resources for active athletes. It's going into the coverage of the game, the coverage of women, which you two are experiencing as well. So I think that's been something that I wasn't prepared for and I didn't dare hope for, which I feel like my whole career was like not daring to hope for anything. And now to be retired, it's really scary. You don't have a stable, a consistent paycheck coming in. You got to find health insurance. And to realize that the investment is going beyond the field, the pitch, that has been something really encouraging. And for me, I have to look at the light. I have to celebrate the wins. Otherwise, I get way too bogged down and depressed and I can't keep fighting. I need to celebrate these wins to give me energy to keep fighting because yes, we've come a long way, but we still have a long way to go.
Yeah, it must feel good of a full circle moment, like you said, paving the way and seeing other people, other women thrive with what you guys laid a foundation. And then on the media side, like this is a big deal. You're getting paid. People are investing in you. What does that feel like?
Just Women Sports is who we're doing the podcast with. That was started by a former soccer player, a woman. You know, they cover women's sports, and that network has been able to grow. Think about Together, that everyone watches women's sports t-shirts.
Yeah.
Sold out. Made a new one for volleyball. Sold out. These are women who have come into the space. You talked about Michelle King. Women, if a man's not doing it, step aside, a woman will do it and she will do it better. And it is really interesting to see because I think there were so many men who didn't believe that it is women who have invested the money and now it's women who are seeing the returns. And that is something I'm very happy about.
Must be cool. You get a paycheck and talk about soccer and you don't have to run.
Exactly.
Like you don't have to run all up and down the field. You get to do it and get paid.
Yeah, and get paid more than I was paid as a soccer player.
Oh, that's good too.
It's good and bad.
It's good that
yes.
I think a lot of athletes, and especially for women, you know, wonder what's next when they retire. And so I think to see, especially for women, that there is even more money on the other side, doing something you still love and talking about something you still love is so great.
The takeaway from this conversation, and thank you so much for joining us. You are amazing on the pitch and on the field, but this post-retired life, you are so incredibly knowledgeable. Your insight on everything is just, you're very, very good. So if there's other broadcast people that you could do like a dual thing with, you are just really, really, really good at that.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining our conversation. Some of our takeaways, mine at least, is that women athletes demonstrating that they can have and shift this visibility shift that was mostly men when it comes to sports. But women athletes can make money for people. They can make money for themselves. This is not a separate women's men's. They are athletes, and you're watching that sport. I think generating revenue, connecting deeply with fans. I think women do that much better than men. That's just a bias as a woman, but amplifying brands, building brands, women-owned companies. These are companies that maybe wouldn't have had the visibility if not for you guys. And I think we've learned with ESPN and other things, you can command media rights. And that's the value of a female athlete, of a woman athlete. And I don't think that's talked about enough, that whole list is why you should invest.
And I think for me, I think the takeaway is that this stuff changes lives at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, it changes lives for viewers, because it empowers women, especially younger women, to see the possibilities out there and to know that they can do stuff. It empowers the athletes themselves. Like, if you love something, and I've seen this from other athletes as well, if you love something and it's your life, it's really hard to make it into a living. That's kind of artists too, everybody. So I think, you know, to know that, you know, women can now make a living in their sport, beyond their sport. I love to hear that, you know, after retiring, you're still able to be a part of the sport that you love so much, because it's hard to just kiss it goodbye. And, you know, like what do you do next? This has been your eat, sleep, and drink for 33 years.
Come on.
You know what I mean? So, you know, that to me, this stuff changes lives, and it changes the way parents parent. You said your daughter coming along will see you do this, and it's the most empowering thing to look up and see that your parent was able to do this and influence these other people. And, you know, as a parent, to point your daughter, your son, whoever, to, you know, something bigger than you can even describe. I think, because like you said, you're not running down the pitch, but you can say
Allie, you know, like in my other life, I felt like I was a really good athlete, but I just became like a professional worker outer, and so that's where we landed. Maybe she'll be an athlete, who knows.
The biggest thing is that equal opportunity is an economic strategy, and that women's sports are entertaining AF. So why not? And yeah, I think this has just been, if you haven't watched so far, if you haven't been, you know, watching sports, specifically sports played with women, because we're working on the verbiage now in the media, I think now is the time to tune into the next Angel City game, look at your local team, see who's there, take your kids. It is an investment worth making, and it is entertaining to watch.
We enjoy it. We're so happy, Allie, that you are here with us and your insight in everything. So let's say you had to give a 30-second pitch. There's a big investor in the elevator. What's the reason why? Yeah, it's Rae.
Okay.
What's the reason you give them to invest right now in women's soccer?
The numbers don't lie. You know, I can sit here and tell you that women are valuable, that women's soccer is exciting, that all of these players and their sport is worth investing in. But look at the numbers, because we've been treated as a charity for so long. And look at the viewership numbers. Look at the valuation of these teams that are just going up, up, and up. The social media statistics. People want to know what we eat, what we drink, what we do, what we wear. You want to make money. I mean, merch flying off the shelves. So if you want to make money, you should probably invest in women's sports.
Writing my imaginary check to you.
Thank you for joining us for this episode. And of course, thank you again to our guest, Allie Riley. We were talking about all things soccer, aka football. But join us for future episodes where we're talking about all things affecting women. This has been Broadlines.
And sign up for the FQ newsletter. Don't forget, you'll get more conversations like this. And we'll see you again next week.